It's a $160 billion a year industry. The 20 largest companies in B2B electrical distribution only account for about 40% of the overall market share. Whenever there's heavy fragmentation, that is ripe for a B2B marketplace to come into the space. Another B2B distribution vertical here is the electrical distribution space. We've published some research in the past on the level of fragmentation in the industry, and there are large B2B electrical distributors, but they don't account for enough of a consolidation in the industry to prevent a marketplace from coming in. So it's a $160 billion a year industry. That number might be a little low. This is from a year or two ago. The 20 largest companies in B2B electrical distribution only account for about 40% of the overall market share. There are over 14,000 companies that are less than $10 million a year doing electrical distribution. That screams heavy fragmentation. And whenever there's heavy fragmentation, that is ripe for a B2B marketplace to come into the space. What are some of the areas within the electrical industry that you would say from a product catalog standpoint are particularly ripe or commoditized for a marketplace to take advantage of that?
You have to look no further than Amazon Business. This kind of electrical and supplies is a big area for them already. Lighting, which is a big area of electrical, is a huge category on Amazon, one of the largest and fastest growing if you look at number of sellers and products in the Amazon Business catalog. Then you also have stuff like wires, connectors, all these kinds of small products, smaller motors that Amazon does that kind of pack and ship stuff very well. It's very easy for them to ship that to a wide range of places. They have a lot of third-party sellers already on the platform for this. And if I'm a B2B distributor selling these kinds of products, what is my unique advantage? These things are fairly commoditized. They're fairly standardized. Amazon's going to have more of them, and they're likely, if they don't already, going to have them at a better price because they have a lot of these smaller sellers competing against each other.
Again, I don't own a B2B electrical distribution business, but if I did, I would say it's got to be at least 40% of their SKUs in their product catalog are what I would call pack and ship. Probably more, but again, I'm not in it. But at least, if it's at least 40% are pack and ship, which I would say puts you in a pretty commoditized bucket, fits almost exactly into the Amazon fulfillment and distribution model. That's not a good thing.
We did do analysis on some of the large distributors a couple of years ago as Amazon Business was starting to get traction. And that percentage is roughly right in terms of what we saw in terms of pack and ship type of items, commoditized items, and then also layering in sort of spot buy behavior. This is a big part. If I'm a electrical, an industrial distributor, this is a big part of my business. And just doing e-com is not going to solve going up against a big marketplace like Amazon.
Right, because the value prop of a B2B marketplace is twofold. One, you get the widest product catalog selection, and you're going to just have more competitive prices. And what do customers want? The best price and the widest selection of choice. When it comes to value add service, which has typically been the response from the MRO, the electrical distributors that are having to talk to analysts on earnings call and explain why Amazon isn't as big of a threat as it actually is. Usually they use the value add service as a reason why. And one interesting story about what Amazon Business won recently is Stanford University. Stanford University is supposed to be a hallmark example of a large customer that needs a lot of high touch value add services, right? Which is supposed to be a hallmark client for large B2B distributors. As to why that's defensible against an Amazon. Well, okay, how did Amazon penetrate this? Stanford has like 20 different colleges. They all have all their own different procurement requirements. And Amazon has all the tools, procurement tools, that they said cut down 50% of the labor costs to comply with all the procurement tools that they could then segment out to all the different departments within Stanford. That was kind of point one. Point two is that Stanford has all these requirements about sourcing products locally. So this is where they're presented a problem where you would talk about value add service. So Amazon basically said, well, if you can't find, say, a minority owned product or a locally sourced product on the marketplace, we're going to give you one or two people and you send what you need to them, and then they're going to go source it and put it on the marketplace, and now you can fulfill your order.
And by the way, Amazon has filtering on its marketplace for those kinds of things. So if you have specific buying criteria saying you need to buy a certain amount from minority-owned businesses or women-owned businesses, these kinds of things are available in terms of B2B buying experience on Amazon Business.
Yes. And so I know some equity research analysts that when they learned about this Stanford University win for Amazon, they started to actually take out from their earnings analysis that the defensibility attributed to the value add service that large distributors were touting as a moat, basically, from a marketplace. But again, to me, it's more of a question of how much of the electrical distribution industry does a B2B marketplace own or control? Is it more like a 30-40%? Is it more like a 60-70%? It's going to be one of the two. And it's just a matter of at what level of scale and over what level of timeline. But not only is it inevitable, it's actually already happening. You already have Amazon. You already have eBay Business, Alibaba. And I think Walmart is now pushing into B2B, and electrical is definitely going to be on that list of things. So there's a threat, but there's also a huge opportunity for electrical distributors to take advantage of this. Thanks for watching our latest clip. If you enjoy the content we're creating on Winner Take All, please feel free to leave us a comment, subscribe, and definitely join us on our next live stream.